From the UFC Octagon and Austin Powers fame to a life sentence for crimes too horrific to comprehend. This isn't just a fall from grace, it's a deep dive into the criminal double life of one of MMA's most disturbing figures. This is Shadowboxing, True Crime in Combat Sports, Episode 5, The Joe Sun Story. Welcome back, guys. It's another episode. I am so sorry it took me so long to get episode 5 out. Things have just been crazy at work, and we had to get a new air conditioner installed at the house, and, life goes on. So just had to put this on the back burner for a little bit, but I promise this episode's going to be good or bad, I guess, depending on the way you judge these episodes. This is a story that I actually wasn't familiar with myself. This person fought before I started covering MMA, before I started watching MMA, so this is somebody I'm not super familiar with, but I did know that this happened, so I guess I'm going to give this story a try. Hopefully you guys learned something new, and as always, let me know what you think. Joe Sun was born on November 20th, 1970 in South Korea. He later became a U.S. citizen, although there's not a lot of information about when he moved here or how that happened, but he was, for most of the story, a U.S. citizen. In terms of his martial arts background, he was first introduced to fans as a cornerman at UFC 3, before making his own official UFC debut at UFC 4. So he is considered the father of a mixed martial arts style called Jo Sun Do, which frankly I've never heard of. I have no idea what it means. Somebody please tell me. But that's what his Wikipedia says. So it must be true. You know what? Maybe he wrote that. This sounds like something he would have put. Anyways, he made his pro debut, like I said, at UFC 4 when he fought Keith Hackney. He outweighed Hackney by 30 pounds, but Hackney had 7 inches of height advantage and was able to defeat Sun in a kind of a wild way. Sun went for a takedown and front headlock attempt, but Hackney countered with a groin strike, which were legal at the time. With one hand, Hackney was striking the groin, and with the other, squeezed Sun's throat, forcing the tap. So, essentially, he won this fight by punching him in the groin. But again, like I said, that was fine at the time. This is probably one of those fights that people use as the example of there's no rules, which the sport has has progressed since then. So, but this is early days. So from there, he competed in K1 kickboxing. He won his fight via KO and then moved on to Pride in 2002. The match became infamous for his attire, where he wore a leopard thong and eye makeup. But the fight only lasted 33 seconds due to an alleged elbow injury. I say alleged because I think a lot of people thought he was faking it. And just 2 months later, he fought at Extreme Pancration 2, and that fight was also short-lived after he began bleeding and then refused to keep fighting. So the official record on that reads the loss as by submission terror, which is really embarrassing and actually pretty funny. I've never seen that before. I don't think that I will probably ever hear it again, but it sounds like he was too afraid to keep fighting. So it kind of goes along with the faked injury from the fight before. And then in Pride in July 2002, he also claimed an injury just 54 seconds into the fight. I'm sensing a pattern here, and his official MMA record is 0-4. He also competed in wrestling for All Japan Pro Wrestling, but I couldn't find much information about that, so I don't know how he did there, but I'm guessing probably not that well. And so now, some of his non-combat career, because you guys actually have heard of this person, and I had no idea he fought in MMA. So this is how I know him. Mainstream people may know him for this as well. I call you mainstream, meaning you're not an MMA fan. Maybe I have some followers that listen to this just because they like true crime, and maybe they've heard of him that way. But he appeared in several low-budget action movies, none of which I am going to list because, frankly, I don't think anyone's heard of them. But he was in a movie that most of us have heard of, and if you haven't, you need to crawl out under your rock. He was in the 1997 movie Austin Powers, and he was a character that was a spoof of a James Bond character, and his name was Random Task. If you don't recall the actual character, which I don't blame you for not recalling it, but when I describe it, you'll probably go, yeah, I remember that scene. He comes into Austin Powers' hotel room dressed as a room service attendant, and he tries to kill Austin Powers by throwing a shoe at his face. That doesn't work, so a struggle ensues, and Powers is able to defeat Random Task by using a penis pump. So I'm sensing a theme here as well. His real fight, he was finished by groin strikes, and in Austin Powers, he was finished by a penis pump. So I'm going to play you the audio. It's really just a bunch of noise, but it's kind of fun, and it will bring you, hopefully remind you of the moment in the movie. So take a listen.
Oh, I ordered some champagne. Come in.
Oh, lovely, Austin.
Right over there's fine, thank you.
Let's go out on the terrace. It's a beautiful night. We can look at the stars.
Smashing idea, baby. Yeah, look at you.
Look out!
That really hurt. I'm gonna have a lump there, you idiot. Who throws a shoe? Honestly. You fight like a woman. Honestly, it's not mine.
No, use it.
Smashing.
All right, I hope you guys had fun with that, because it all goes downhill from here. It's just not going to be good from here. So that was the last bit of excitement, and go watch the movie if you want to be lightened up after this podcast episode, because it's going to suck. So here we go. Bear with me, because it's pretty wild, and it's a saga. It started May 16th, 2008, when Sun was arrested for felony vandalism after kicking his roommate's car. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail and given probation. Now, I haven't gotten to any of the other crimes, but if that was all he really did was kicking his roommate's car, 60 days in jail seems very steep. There might have been something else there, because I just can't see 60. I mean, I see 6 days, 10 days. 60 days seems like a lot. But he also was required to submit his DNA during that process, which is, again, that's just weird. It doesn't seem like, I guess kicking a car is a violent crime, but he didn't kick a person. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they did it, because if they hadn't, who knows where it'd be now. But it just seems weird that there was a DNA being collected for that kind of a crime. So, like I said, May 16th, arrested. Now, flash forward to August 18th, 2008, same year. He was arrested again and given an additional 90 days for not following probation rules. So I guess in part of his probation is he was supposed to give his whereabouts, and he didn't give his whereabouts, and so that's what he was rearrested for. And this is where it kind of gets wonky. So while he was in custody for that, the DNA that he had submitted in May was flagged for a sexual assault cold case that happened on Christmas Eve in 1990. So here's the details of the sexual assault, and the next few minutes could be difficult for some if you're triggered by this kind of talk. Forward it a little bit. You may even want to just turn off the rest of the episode, because I think that's pretty much all we're going to talk about. But here's what happened on Christmas Eve, 1990. So the victim says she was walking back to her home with her dog. She says Sun, along with his friend Santiago Gayton, pretended to be lost and grabbed her and threatened to kill her. So they took her, threw her in their car, and according to her, they repeatedly raped, sodomized, tortured, and pistol whipped her before pushing her out of the car naked after they faked executing her. I mean, that's a lot. That's just a lot. And to have to go from 1990 until 2008, that's 18 years without knowing, who it was that attacked you and knowing they're out in the world. I can't imagine having to go through that. It must be absolute torture. They did take the DNA at the time, but because, it's early 90s, DNA just wasn't really a thing back then. And obviously we know that they didn't have his DNA until 2008. So it seems like pretty quickly they were able to link the DNA. So even if DNA had been good in the 90s, who knows if they would have been able to get it. So the victim, who I believe goes by Victoria, she has never revealed her real name, but she does refer to herself as this name in an episode of Live to Tell. So here's her talking about a little bit about the build up to that moment in 2016. There's no graphic details here, so you should be okay to listen to it if you might be triggered. Take a listen.
I was 19 years old. I was an absolute rocker chick. That night, I was with a few friends. We were gearing up to go out and look at Christmas lights. As I was going home that evening, I know it was just after midnight. I was pulling into my complex. I noticed my gate was wide open. It was extremely dark in the parking lot, and the lights over my carport were glitching. And I thought I had heard the sound of possibly somebody coming through the gate. It was that sound of tires going over like a rail. Just the sound. I had taken my dog and stuck her inside my jacket and then folded her up real tight because it was very cold outside. And as I got out, I just had the weirdest feeling that I was being watched. And as I got up to the sidewalk, I saw a shadow go in front of a light. And as I did that, a guy just came up and fastly approached me. And he kept saying, excuse me, I'm lost. Can you help me find where the beach is? And then a second person comes up. He had a cigarette in his hand. And I see this in slow motion in my head. I see him flicking it, and I said to myself, watch where it lands. And then, bam, I got pounced from the front and from the back. He slammed a gun to my head, and he's just like, in my ear, I'm gonna kill you so bad, I'm gonna throw you off the cliffs. I'm gonna mutilate you and throw you down the cliffs. And I fought with everything I had in my soul to not be a missing person or to have a toe tag at the end.
So now that they were able to connect Sun with the crime, they were able to quickly identify the second man and arrested him as well, and his DNA also matched. So while they were investigating, they recorded some of the interrogation, and it was put, I believe, on an episode of 48 Hours. I'm not sure which crime series it was that aired it, but here's a portion of his interrogation where he talks a little bit about his career. He almost seems like he's bragging a little bit, but this interrogation was done by the Huntington Beach Police Department. So take a listen to that.
And you said that you were an actor. What do you do with acting?
I do comedy, play bad guys sometimes. Did you see Austin Powers? I played a little role in part 1.
Okay. What else have you do? You just act? Is that how you make your living, just acting and...
I'm a professional fighter.
What kind of fighter?
MMA. You can find me in Wikipedia, believe it or not.
How'd you do with your fighting career?
I lost all my fights. I was in UFC 4. I did Pride 2002, February and July. I lost both fights. I pro wrestled there for a little while. It was going good, but I didn't sign the contract.
Okay, Joe, let me tell you what the deal is here, okay? Young girl, 19 years old. Late at night, early morning of Christmas Eve, the 24th of December, 1990. She's driving home to the apartment complexes out on Rivers. Okay? She parks in the carport. 2 guys jam her in the carport. They grab her, throw her in the car, drive her some distance away.
That's bad.
It's very bad. And the DNA tells us it's you.
Okay, wrong guy.
You recognize anybody in that? That's you, right?
That's me.
And what we did, showed that to the girl who was kidnapped. She goes, 100% certain it's him. I've seen that face every night I go to bed. She said, that's the face I've seen of the guy who kidnapped me, one of the guys who kidnapped me and raped me. I mean, just that alone screws you, okay? No doubt about it. Okay, and the DNA is saying, yes, you're the guy. And you're sitting here saying, how is that going to fly, Joe?
This is scary. You know, I can't tell you something I don't know.
Well, you do know. Is it?
And you know, you say you have this evidence, you know, and it's scary.
And here's where things get wonky again. Thank you to the lovely legal system. So, Sun was initially charged with 5 counts of sexual assault, 2 felony counts of forcible sodomy, 2 felony counts of sodomy in concert by force, 7 felony counts of forcible oral copulation, and 1 felony count of sexual penetration by foreign object by force. And he faced up to 275 years to life in prison if he was found guilty of those. But before the trial was able to begin, the statute of limitations expired and his charges were dropped. Thankfully, they were able to recharge him with the following charges. So he was charged with conspiracy to commit murder and torture, which carries no statute of limitations. His accomplice was sentenced in January 2011 to 17 years and 4 months in state prison, with parole possible in 2018. And Sun was found guilty of felony count of torture and sentenced to 7 years to life. Now, that does not seem like much either. So he was originally facing 275 years to life, and now he got 7 years to life. And I know that seems weird because 7 years is so little and life is so much, especially when his accomplice got 17 years and 4 months. So it just depends on, I guess, how the charges stemmed out. I think that his accomplice pled guilty to specific charges, and I think that's where maybe his accomplice messed up because he didn't go to trial. So he just pled guilty to the original charges before the statute of limitations went up, is what I believe happened. Again, it's just based off of these facts. It seems like that's what happened. And yeah, I would think that this would be the end of the story. He's been sentenced to jail and potentially in there for life. But yeah, it doesn't end there, guys. There's actually more to the story. So less than a month after being sentenced, he was charged with beating his cellmate to death. So his cellmate was Michael Graham, who was in prison for a parole violation. So he was a transient who was serving time for failing to register as a sex offender and had been sentenced to 2 years for the crime. So he was in a cell with Sun. Apparently, they came into the cell and he was found dead and he had severe wounds. And I mean, if you're locked in a cell with one other person, it's pretty obvious who did that to him. So he was found guilty, moved to solitary confinement in 2017, and he received an additional 27-year sentence. So it's safe to say he's probably not getting out. I really probably should have checked to make sure he's still in there. I would guess he's still in there. He definitely is not one of those people that I can see getting paroled. But, it's wild to think about it, because if he hadn't kicked his roommate's car and been forced to give that DNA, he could be out on the streets now doing whatever it is that he's doing, with connections in, MMA, connections in Hollywood. And, he didn't have a big part in Austin Powers, but those teeny little parts, sometimes they can carry their career the rest of their lives. You see people at conventions who were in a movie one time and they, have all these fans. So, you just never know. So it's a good thing that they did take his DNA at that time. I still find it wild that they did. Thankfully they did. The victim may never have gotten closure otherwise. And again, like this is so wild how this all turned out. So that was a weird one. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you guys learned something and maybe, learned about a new person, a new criminal you'd never heard of before. Like I say every episode, please let me know in the comments who you want me to talk about next. Like I said before, I have some I'm working on that I'm just waiting for convictions or more information or court records and things like that. But I'm always open to suggestions. And I did hear, this is kind of an interesting thing, I did just hear Bisping tweeted, Michael Bisping, former UFC champion, current ESPN commentator, he was actually a potential target for a serial killer. And I just think that's a wild story that I'm going to have to dive into. Maybe I can get Bisping on the podcast to talk about it. If you want to hear it, tag Bisping in this episode. Ask him to come on. Talk about it. We don't have to talk about anything else. I just want to know how that happened, how we found out, why the serial killer didn't make him the victim. I don't know. There's so many details. That sounds wild. So again, thank you for listening. And like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. Bye.